It is session 3. Man, these go by really fast.
They do.
Carrie might be thinking the same thing. She's like, I was just here. Like,
Yeah.
They go by so fast, but they're very, very well received so far. We're getting a ton of comments and likes and retweets from everywhere across the world. So thank you so much. Today, we're having a little bit of a digital learning showcase with Keep Indiana Learning, and they're powered by Central Indiana Educational Service Center. So we've got a great session planned for you with Diana Knox, my good friend from the west side of Indiana.
West side represent.
Central Eastern over here. So we always love that. But before we get started, I do want to make sure that all of these sessions we mention some great new things happening with Canvas Studio. And if you're not using Canvas Studio, it is one of our premier platforms that's kind of baked into Canvas. Diana, you guys use Canvas Studio?
We have Canvas Studio. This is our first year, and I love it.
Let's go, right?
Yeah.
It is absolutely fantastic. If Diana loves it, just like Jim, there's a lot of people you need to know in the Canvas community. Diana's one of them. If they say they love it, then you might as well take that money to the bank, because there is a lot of great things happening, and they are always in the know on these. Canvas Studio, fantastic platform, baked into Canvas, a great place to create some interactive content. You know what? I just should just stop talking. We should just show
Just show it.
Learning wasn't meant to be a one-way street. For learning to stick, students need to do and make, not just watch and listen. They need interaction, collaboration, feedback. Canvas Studio transforms video learning by turning content into conversation. Here's how it works. Educators can create a variety of media experiences for their courses, from self-recorded video to interactive discussions around other content. Students can create videos too, as assignment submissions, presentations, peer feedback, or ways to practice. Everyone gets their own personal media library. Want to bring YouTube content into the mix? No problem. And accessibility is built right in. Focus students' attention with time-stamped comments, then turn those comments into conversations. Embed quiz questions to gauge understanding of key concepts at key moments. Then send the scores straight to the gradebook. Want a deeper look at engagement? Studio offers second-by-second, student-by-student analytics. See what's sinking in and what's falling flat. Personalize, refine, repeat. And of course, Canvas Studio integrates seamlessly with the Canvas LMS. That means Studio can deliver videos exactly how students and teachers want to see them through Canvas mobile apps. It means your institution gets full control of its video assets and a simple storage and bandwidth solution. And your students get richer Canvas courses, no extra logins, and a more fluid learning experience, whether they're online, in person, or somewhere in between. Ready to make video learning more powerful? Learn more about Canvas Studio at Instructure.com.
I love that video. It gets me so excited because I love Studio so much. I loved it as a client. And what better way to talk about making connections with students than just segueing right from Canvas Studio to my friend Carrie from Keep Indiana Learning and Diana Knox. I'm so excited to see what you have in store for us.
Thank you, Eddie. So I just want to say really quickly, I'm gonna say about Diana. She is one of our 18 digital learning coaches with Keep Indiana Learning, and our coaches help support schools all across the state, but specifically 30 schools that we are supporting in conjunction with the University of Indianapolis and their CEL program, and we are funded through one of the Governor's Gear grants. And so Diana has been one of our amazing coaches, and I'm super excited for you to hear what she has to share today, all about making connections with students and how Canvas can help you do that. So thank you so much, Diana. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm a little nervous. I mean, you know, when you follow the Canvas casters, that's a big deal.
Please. Listen, we talked about laundry chutes.
Yeah.
So listen, there's a lot. It got off task pretty quick. We're not the best of students.
You have fun, right?
You have fun.
Diana, do you want to go ahead and share your screen so I can get that set up on the back end?
Absolutely.
Lots of people loving it, though. While you're doing that, let's just throw some up. Joe, our friend Joe and Michelle, who have a session coming up.
Hi, Joe.
They're super excited to see you. Saying, hi, Diana, I can't wait to see you. Kyle Klein, I'm not surprised he's not on the golf course, getting a little sunshine.
It's probably snowing up there.
Right, it's already snowing on him, but, he's, hey, Diana, can't wait to view your session. So super excited to have you. We've got the stream ready. We've got the screen going, so take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So as we get in here today, making connections with students, I think for me, that was my favorite thing about being in the classroom sometimes. I absolutely loved getting in there and meeting my students, getting to know them, and making those connections. So I do have a little bit.ly here at the bottom of the screen that you can access these slides if you want. And I have some comments in the speaker notes because I'm afraid I'm going to forget something. There's so much I could talk to you about. So as a driving force for me, one of my things that I always focused on was the fact that my relationships with my students probably did help me have less problems with classroom management and disruption in students' behaviors. And that's not to say they were all perfect, because Lord have mercy, we all know that there are some stinkers out there, but those stinkers are usually some of the most lovable ones. You can make those connections and get to know them. But relationships with our students are important, and we know the reasons why. We know that it's important to give those students a sense of belonging. Give them a feeling of voice when they feel comfortable and know that they can share their thoughts, their ideas, their plans, and sometimes even their disagreement with you. If they feel safe that they can do that and know that they're still going to be respected, those connections are everlasting and super strong. We also know that stronger connections with our students show an increase in academic achievement, and that's why we're here. We want our students to achieve and to know and to learn and grow. And so these pieces are important to help us with that. We all have a huge treasure trove bag of tricks that we could pull from to create relationships with students in the classroom, face-to-face, traditional settings. But when we start to look at flipping the lens on this one-on-one time, discussing expectations, these things that you see listed here, doing that in an online or a virtual environment can be a little bit more challenging. So how do we flip that lens? How do we make that work? And Canvas can help you do this. There are many features of Canvas, and more than I have listed here. And I have to confess, a lot of my ideas, they're not original. I didn't invent them. I followed when the Canvas casters were talking and they gave you that list of people to follow. Those are some of the very people that I gleaned some of these initial ideas from. The Canvas casters, Kona Jones, the elementary, Canvas for Elementary, Carrie and Lindsay, and Jim Wolf, and Canada Tweets, and some of the people that I've never had the privilege of meeting in person, but I've watched the information that the Canvas family has shared and put out there, and I've gleaned a lot of really great ideas. So we're going to kind of go through these in order and talk about how you can use these things to create connections with your students, and hopefully this will go pretty well. So the inbox, I love the Canvas inbox feature, and the inbox for us lets us communicate with the entire class in just a couple of clicks. And so you can go in, select a class, select everybody in the class, or select specific people. Each person can be sent their individual message, and then that will go out and it creates a log. And this doesn't really apply to my session, but I love the new analytics. So in new analytics, you can kind of track how many times you've reached out to a student and how many times they've reached back. If you have your notification set up correctly, or I guess I shouldn't say correctly, a preference, I have it come to my inbox of my email. So these come right to your email. It's not like managing a couple of different places. You can reply right back. So this inbox is a great way to make those connections and reach out. If it's something you want to share with the whole class, or an individual where you want to just check in on them and see how things are going because you noticed that they were quiet in the online session today. Those are things that are important to note with the inbox. Discussions, this is something, admittedly, it's probably my area of weakness. I don't have a lot of discussions in my treasure trove to use from, but it's one of my missions is to improve. And so I remember attending a session with the fabulous Megan Tolan and Joanna Ray, and it was at a Summer of E-Learning session at Richmond, and they had a whole session on discussions. And one of the ideas that they gave us was you kind of put your students into groups and assign some roles. And so you have students that are deliberately taking on maybe a stance that isn't what they personally believe, but they have to give information and defend it. And I thought that was a great way of engaging the students in the course and asking them to really amp up their critical thinking. But if you also insert yourself into those discussions, it's another way for the students to get to know you on another level, to get to know things that you have that you want to share with them. And then they will feel safer speaking up, adding information, sharing with you. So mix up those discussions. They don't have to be the standard that maybe some of us went to college with discussion boards. There's lots of creative ways to use discussions and to create those connections. And it's not even just the connections with your students between the teacher and the student, but you want to also establish those connections student to student. And then that will also trickle back to you and you can reap the benefits from it. Canvas quizzes. This is an idea that I have to say, Kona Jones, I first heard her on an episode of the Canvas Casters. I think it's episode number 2. She talked about using Canvas quizzes not just as a quiz. So don't let that name trip you up. Don't let you think that can only be used for assessment or quick checks and things like that. You can use it as an SEL check-in. And I know here in the state of Indiana, we're really starting to focus heavily on SEL. There's been huge talk of it during the pandemic about making sure we're keeping up with our students and understanding how they're feeling and where they are. And you can use the quizzes to replace your beginning of the year questionnaire. And I loved Kona's idea. I think she uses it to gather feedback from students, just kind of a general, how are you checking in? May not necessarily be content related, but she talked about using quizzes just to learn about her students and know where they were in the world and where they were with what was going on in their lives that might help her understand a bit better how to, what was going on in their world and how to make those connections. And I loved the idea that, did you know the gradebook has a notes section? And you can turn that on in the view, turn that on, and then you can log little bits of information about your students. And you know, these are things where you're trying to get into those nuts and bolts pieces about the student. We don't really necessarily their favorite food, that kind of thing, but we want to know really what makes them tick. I remember distinctly, my mom was a teacher, come from a long line of teachers. And she had a student when she filled out the questionnaire at the beginning of the year, and the one thing he told her was, don't ever ask me about X. And it was something from his past, and it was something that might be an everyday conversation, but she knew that. And so that's a place that you can make that note in the gradebook, keep that information, keep track and refer back to it, so that when later, if I want to give feedback on something, or if I want to interact with a student, I can remember those things and help make those connections by drawing on those personal pieces of information. The media piece of Canvas. We saw that commercial about Studio. I cannot speak to as much about how we love Studio, the potential that I see for our district. But before we get into Studio, let's focus. Canvas gives us lots of ways that we can be seen, be heard to our students. So don't be afraid to show yourself. During the pandemic, the number one thing that students said they missed was they missed seeing their teacher. And this teachers also said they hated that they lost that connection with students. And so through SpeedGrader, you can do media comments, and your teachers or your students will love to hear and see what you have to say. And we all know that sometimes if I type a comment, first of all, it takes me longer to type than it does to click the record and to speak it. But second of all, there's so much that can be lost in text versus actually hearing and seeing someone deliver that feedback, that compliment, even a criticism, because the connotation gets lost in text. And so that media recorder for SpeedGrader submissions, perfect way for you to get real with your students, make those connections, because they're going to appreciate that you took that time and effort. Anytime you have the rich content editor, you'll see this. There's an image here that shows where you can find the record and upload media option. And so I can put content right into a page, a quiz, a discussion. Anytime that I have access to the rich content editor, I can add media. And that's fabulous because, again, we are living in a world where more and more it's not about the written word, it's about that spoken. It's, I kind of giggle and I say we live in a TikTok world right now. Our students' attention spans are getting shorter and people want to see it, and they want to see it in short snippets. So by putting that video on there, they can quickly watch. I might supplement it with the text written too, so that if somebody doesn't want to watch the video, they can see it. But students are going to appreciate that effort to reach them in the place where they really like to learn now. Canvas Studio, we saw that video, the commercial that they've put together. Canvas Studio, I can't say enough about. This was our first year with it. The power that it gives with the analytics. I was an avid user of Edpuzzle before we had Canvas, and Canvas Studio does so much for us, giving us those analytics, letting us put quiz questions in there to check for understanding, to make sure that our students watch it, give them that little push. But I love the new comments and the annotations that you can add in. And again, I think our students just appreciate seeing us when we make those instructional videos. And huge thank you to Canvas. We are a Chromebook district, and now you can screencast on a Chromebook. So we appreciate that so much in our district. And then if you are an avid Flipgrid user, we all know the power of Flipgrid, and the LTI integrates seamlessly with Canvas. So these abilities to let the students see one another, let the students see you and hear you, boy, is that powerful. Now, probably my favorite little feature of Canvas is the Message Students Who. And Message Students Who is amazing, 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 because it lets us reach out to students in very little ways. And so one of the things that I have talked about with the Message Students Who and with our teachers is using it in the gradebook component. And if I'll go back here for a second, within the gradebook, you can click on a specific assignment, the 3 dots, go in, message a student who has not submitted it, message it if you haven't graded it yet, or if they've scored in a certain area. So where this is powerful, obviously we want to reach out to those students that haven't submitted, but as teachers, we know life happens, and my students always really appreciated it if I got real with them. And so let's say that life happens and something happened and I got sick, maybe I got the flu, and so it put me behind on my grading. And so I could say, hey guys, I know that you don't have a grade for this yet, and I promised you I'd get it to you by now, but this is why. And so it's a quick way to deliver that message. But what some of our teachers are still discovering is that in new analytics, you also have access to students, Message Students Who. And for that, it is course grades and students are 2 of your options in new analytics. And that way I can message students who have a certain score range, missing work, late work. But I think my favorite is in weekly online activity, where I can message students who didn't view something that I shared. Think about that. You give them some resources, a study guide, something amazing for a project that you're working on, and you get on there and you see that 5 of your students didn't even look at it yet. And so you can send them a quick message and say, hey, I shared that, it's really great, you should check it out. So that's a way to quickly reach out, make connections, and talk to your students. One of the last things that I think about are homepages. And some people might say, now come on, Diana, that's a stretch for making connections with your students. But I think if our students feel that their initial impression, remember that old commercial, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and your homepage for Canvas is that for you. And if our homepages are, if they're functional, they're clean, try to make them proportional, they're inviting, really, really, really try to flip that lens and put on what the students are thinking, and look for a homepage that they can engage in, know immediately where they need to go, what they need to do. In the Canvas Commons, I remember getting this from a live stream back in the summer or early fall when we were in that panic planning for this year. There is a resource that is dynamic homepages. And this next screen right here shows you one of our teachers took that, adapted it to fit what he needed for his class. And he has a homepage that is so easy to navigate. It's super functional. There's no question about what's due and when. And it's just an amazing resource. So Canvas provides us with 50 million different opportunities and ways for us to reach out to students and connect and talk and share that I think are so powerful for us. So, those are things that we try to share all the time with our teachers. And I'm sure there's a million more I could have talked about. I could talk for hours, but I know my time is limited.
Right. Diana, you're knocking it out of the park. We have tons of comments coming in. I hear from Amanda on our YouTube page. Great feature. Let students know that you're involved and want them to succeed. Absolutely. Obviously, everyone loves message students who.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It's such a great feature. And I'm so glad you shared it, because it is something that I think there are a lot of educators out there that don't know about, or that maybe have seen it once or twice. But obviously, lots of comments coming in, and appreciate everybody joining us today. Diana, do you have anything else you want to share before we depart?
In my typical, I talked really fast, so I rushed right on through it. But if you have any questions or need anything, reach out to me. Reach out to one of the Canvas fam that was mentioned in the Canvas Caster session. I have to echo what they said. This is the most amazing group of people to be a part of as far as professional learning and professional sharing. Your answers to your questions can always be found with a quick Twitter message out, "Hey, I need help," and somebody swoops into the rescue.
Always. There isn't anything like this Canvas community of people. They are a little bit nuts, I think.
I think that was on the application to be. Yeah, I think so. You had to do that.
Absolutely.
And the movie to all, I can attest to this. Like, it is so fun, like, be kind of like the one that like is dipping her toes into this with all the digital learning and all of my awesome colleagues. It's just fun to like see the energy that you bring, and clearly this community has created that that zest for what you're trying to do. And so just you're doing great work, both of you, and super excited to be a part of it and support you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share.
No problem. This was great. So again, as always, we are rocking with Keep Indiana Learning today here in my backyard of Indiana. Lots of Hoosiers being shown today and showcased on the great things that they're doing with Canvas. We have Joe and Michelle coming up next to talk about a topic that I wish we talked more about, but it is SEL. So super excited to have them on. Stick with us in a few more minutes. We'll be right back on the next live stream. 4 of 6 today. So an exciting time as we show off and showcase Keep Indiana Learning here in Indiana.